What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you some news about Baldur's Gate 3's upcoming patch 8, which is actually going live tomorrow from the time of this video, which is going up on the 14th. But with the release of patch 8 bringing 12 new subclasses, photo mode, crossplay, there's plenty of things in there to be excited about, but more than anything, I'm just really happy that I'm finally, frankly, ready to play more Baldur's Gate 3. And so I thought I'd take a break from my usual videos and make something a little different, just kind of talking about that experience overall, while also giving you a little bit of news. But I think by now most people are aware that patch 8 is launching very soon. And as always, I do plan on covering that on the 16th. More than likely, I'll have a video covering the actual patch highlights from the patch notes that they put out so I can talk about things a little more specifically, because apparently there's like 48 pages of them, so there's going to be plenty to go over. But this video, I basically just want to talk about a few specific things we already know that are in there that I'm excited for, some upcoming plans in terms of what that coverage looks like now that I'm ready to jump back into it, and, why I'm saying that I'm ready to jump back into it. But first, let's kick off with the most pressing stuff, the things I'm actually excited for in patch 8. By far and away, the thing I am most excited for is the addition of the Hexblade subclass for the Warlock. Hexblade Warlock in Dungeons & Dragons 5e is hands down my favorite thing about that edition, because if you follow the channel at all, D&D 3.5 is my preferred edition. The spin-off then, of course, into the Pathfinder rule set with all of its expansions is my number one favorite rule set, just period, or Pathfinder 1e if you prefer. And I even enjoy a little advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and while I enjoy 5e well enough for what it is, and with its popularity and everything, it's kind of hard not to know about it when you are in a position like mine where you cover all these games and whatnot. So I'm very, very familiar with it, but 5e is honestly just a little simple for my taste. And while you can do fun stuff with it, and I think as a rule set it does a really fantastic job of bridging ease of entry with, some mechanics and things to play around with, it lacks a certain crunch that I get from, say, Pathfinder, which checks out as it, isn't called Mathfinder for nothing. But there is one thing I love about 5th edition D&D, and that is, of course, the Hexblade Warlock, which is why, if people remember way back when, my very first playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 was with a Warlock character, and I was like the only person, I think, during the review period to have actually finished the game before the review embargo lifted, even though it took another 11 playthroughs for me to get out to the 100% and honor mode and everything. But why do I like this subclass so much? Well, basically, it just happens to be the exact right combo of exactly how I want to play the game, mixing the Warlock's unique mechanics with a bigger emphasis on melee ability, curses, and summoning. It just, kind of ticks all of the boxes for me, which is hardly uncommon. It's a very popular subclass, which is why I was excited on release that even though they weren't adding it in, they were moving some of the mechanics of the other Warlock abilities to sort of accommodate some of the Hexblade's main features, which now simply won't be necessary, which is why I'm planning a full playthrough with this specific subclass as my main guy. But more on that in a moment. Now, there are actually a couple other specific things I know are coming with this patch because they've already mentioned them that I'm really excited for, but they are much smaller and perhaps a little more specific to me. For starters, they are including a little update that's going to allow you to use scrolls and potions that are in containers in your inventory and things like conversations. And if you've watched me play it all via my live stream of the Jack of all Trades achievement as an example, you may just notice that I have a very specific way of configuring my inventory, which is some of what I learned from playing Divinity Original Sin 2 and sort of old habits from that game since it uses a slightly older version of the same engine. But with this change allowing you to access those items in containers in conversations, that's just going to be a really subtle small tweak that will affect probably, someone like me more than anyone else in a way that is a huge quality of life improvement, and I'm not even joking when I say I'm really looking forward to that. But speaking of small, subtle changes to quality of life, they're actually also making a change that will keep neutral and friendly NPCs from triggering combat by walking into surfaces created during combat encounters after combat is over, which could be incredibly annoying. But if you're unaware, during combat, obviously spells are flying everywhere. Sometimes effects persist after combat is over, and sometimes friendlies will walk into them, which then triggers a combat you don't want and were not intending. So that having been addressed and removed is something I'm really looking forward to. but I'm sure there will be plenty of surprises in the actual patch notes tomorrow, so let's talk a little bit about that in particular. I've already mentioned that I'm going to be doing a highlights video, of course, as always, that's pretty much expected from me, and that's almost certainly going to be up on the 16th after I have a chance to mess around with everything, see what I need to see, and get it done. Now, depending on what that looks like time-wise, I thought it might be fun to try and do a live stream that night of just, some stuff, messing around with it, testing out the new subclasses and stuff, and just kind of shooting the breeze and talking to people. I'm not going to fully commit to that just because, again, time constraints, and I'm going to see what I have time for, but ideally that is something I would like to do. Kind of knock my once-a-year live stream I've seemed to be consistently doing for the last several years out of the park a little early. But what's more, because I'm actually ready to play more of this game, at some point, probably around my birthday towards the end of May, I plan on doing a full playthrough with the Hexblade Warlock just for myself, and I might wind up making some more content around that. In fact, if any of the other subclasses, which I will be trying out of course, wind up speaking to me, I may just do a build video for old time's sake, since a lot of those videos did really well for me when Baldur's Gate 3 launched, of course. So in some form or fashion, there will be some more Baldur's Gate 3 content to come, which is probably only fitting to accompany what is supposed to be the final major patch, which honestly, if I'm just speculating, probably has something to do with using some of the content they had planned for that DLC they started but ultimately scrapped. Now, the final part of this video is just sort of me talking a little bit about my experiences with this game, which is possibly a little more dry than the rest of this video has been, so, if you want to click off now, I don't think you'll be missing much. But if you've watched the channel a lot, just kind of over the past year or so, you've probably heard me mention a couple times that I just got really burnt out playing Baldur's Gate 3 here and there, which isn't any fault of the games. I actually love the game, but it was definitely a moment where I was like, I'm actually doing a little too much and I need to stop, or at least take it down a notch or two, which is what I ultimately did, of course. But for those who are unaware, Baldur's Gate 3 kind of hit at the right time, right place for the channel. I had covered the previous games, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and my story recap videos got like hundreds of thousands of views in the lead up to Baldur's Gate 3 once the marketing went viral. I did videos talking about every class, I did builds and everything, I got a review copy, and I was, again, I think the only person that I'm aware of that actually finished it before the review embargo lifted because of how short the time period was. They gave it just a couple days ahead of it releasing, and then that put me in a position to make more videos about like builds and stuff, which did extremely well, and then I of course covered all the patches and things after, and all of that collectively did so well for the channel that it paid off my house, as I've mentioned here and there. More specifically, it wound up paying about the 70% or so that I had left to pay on my house at that time. So in many ways, Baldur's Gate 3, having put me in a much more financially secure position, has made doing the rest of what I do a much easier proposition because I don't have to worry about things so much, which in a very, let's say, chaotic nature of being a YouTuber when it comes to, how you do financially and whatnot, has made my life infinitely easier. But because it was doing so well for the channel and everything, I really buckled down on it. And in order to finish the 100% review, which came out a couple months after the game actually released, and also keep up with other games, over the span of just a couple months, I put like 500-ish hours into it, and then when I finished the 100% review is right around the time when they announced Honor Mode and stuff, and then I actually just put that off a little bit because I was already very tired, and then around the Christmas break of 2023, I even went through Honor Mode, made content about that, and when all of that was said and done, I was exhausted. I had put so much time and effort into that game that the thought of playing any more of it was making me physically sick. I was just like, I can't keep playing this game anymore. I just really needed to do something, anything else, which is exactly what I've been doing. I haven't really talked about Baldur's Gate 3 too much outside of the occasional mention here since pretty much the beginning of 2024, outside of like one or two videos. And like everything in life, it was a bit of a learning experience to be sure, but the past year or so that I've taken as sort of break from Baldur's Gate 3, I would say has really prepared me to jump back into Patch 8 and be in a place to enjoy it just for myself, and thanks to all of the sort of release craze and everything being over, probably go about that in a way that's going to be a bit healthier for me, frankly. But even back then, I knew that it wasn't, anything the game did. I was just exhausted, and I'm excited to jump back into something I love, and I know plenty of other people are just as excited about all of that as I am, so hopefully you're looking forward to some of that coverage from me. In fact, if there's anything specific you'd like to know or see, by all means drop it down in the comment section below of this particular video, but I think for today that's pretty much gonna wrap it up. Sincerely hope you enjoyed this one and the future videos to come. In the meantime though, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly just thank you so much for watching, especially listening to all that, because truthfully, I really don't want anything I ever do sound like I'm complaining about this as a job, as the worst day doing this is better than the best days I had at old, more traditional jobs, let's say. So getting to do this for a living is just a huge, again, blessing that is allowed by the people who watch these videos. And I think getting to do this for a living means the world to me. And while it might seem like a small thing, being in a position to be able to sort of just take a break from a game like that and, come back to it later, means a lot to me, even if it might seem like a small thing in the grand scope of things. So truly, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.